How lemons won the Napoleonic Wars using the citrus method. Between the years 1500 and 1800, one disease killed around 2 million sailors. Not storms, not cannon fire, not drowning, a disease. It killed more men than every sea battle of that era combined, and it did it on nearly every long voyage, rotting crews alive far from home. And the entire time, the cure was sitting right there, in the ship's hold, in a piece of fruit. A lemon. That's the part that should stop you. They had the answer for centuries before they used it. Then they used it and it won a war. And then, and this is the part almost nobody knows, they lost the cure all over again. They forgot how to stop a disease they had already beaten. Stay with me, because this is the story of how a single fruit erased a plague, rewrote the balance of power in Europe, and then slipped through the fingers of the most powerful navy on Earth. And by the end, you'll understand exactly what that fruit does inside your body, and the one mistake that made the medicine vanish while it was still sitting in the barrel. Let's start with what the disease actually did, because you have to feel it to understand the rest. The disease was scurvy, and on a long voyage with no fresh food, it was almost a certainty. A ship would leave port with a healthy crew, and within about 6 to 12 weeks at sea, men started falling apart, not metaphorically, literally coming apart at the seams. Some voyages lost half their men to it, some lost more. When Commodore Anson sailed around the world in the 1740s, he left with nearly 2,000 men and came home with about 200. More than 80% of his crew gone, most of them to scurvy. That voyage was called a success because he captured a Spanish treasure ship. Think about that. Losing 80% of your men was the cost of doing business at sea. Picture what that actually looked like, because this is the part that makes it real. You're 3 months out. You've been living on salt beef and hard biscuit, nothing fresh, for weeks. First you're tired, a bone-deep exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Then your gums start to swell and darken, going soft and purple, pulling back from your teeth until the teeth loosen in their sockets. Your skin bruises if you so much as lean on something. And then the strangest, most horrifying part. Old wounds you thought had healed years ago. A sword cut, a rope burn, a broken bone that knitted back together a decade past, start to come undone. The scars soften and split. The old breaks ache and separate. Your body is literally UN healing, unstitching every repair it ever made, and no one on that ship has the faintest idea why, or that the thing that would stop all of it is a lemon sitting in a crate below deck. So why didn't they just eat the lemon? That's the whole tragedy, and it starts with one man. In 1747, a Scottish naval surgeon named James Lind was aboard HMS Salisbury when scurvy broke out among the crew. And Lind did something almost no one in medicine did back then. He ran an experiment, a real controlled one of the first in the history of medicine. He took 12 sailors, all sick with scurvy at roughly the same stage, and split them into 6 pairs. Each pair got a different remedy that people believed might work. One pair got cider, one got vinegar, one got seawater, one got a nasty paste of spices, one got diluted sulfuric acid, and one got 2 oranges and a lemon a day. Within 6 days, the results weren't subtle. The pair eating citrus recovered so completely that one of them was fit to go back on duty and started helping nurse the others. The men on vinegar and seawater and acid kept dying. Lind had, right there on that deck, proven the cure. Fresh citrus. It was that clear. And here is where the story becomes almost unbearable. The Navy ignored him for nearly 50 years. Lind published a 450-page treatise on scurvy in 1753, laying it all out, and it mostly sat on shelves. Part of the problem was Lind himself. He buried the clear finding under a pile of other theories and hedges. Part of it was that the Navy didn't want to hear that the solution was expensive fresh fruit for thousands of men. And part of it was simple institutional inertia. So for another 2 generations, sailors kept dying of a disease that a surgeon had already cured on the deck of the Salisbury. Having the answer, it turns out, is not the same as using it. It took 2 other men to force the change. A physician named Gilbert Blane, who was well-connected, personally convinced, and relentless, and another naval doctor, Thomas Trotter. Blane was smart about it. He didn't appeal to mercy. He appealed to math. He told the penny-pinching admirals, in effect, that every 50 lemons should be counted as another sailor in the fleet, because that's how many men citrus would keep alive in fighting. He figured out how to preserve lemon juice with a bit of alcohol so it would survive long voyages. And finally, in 1795, 48 years after Lind's experiment, and after Lind was already dead, the Admiralty ordered a daily ration of lemon juice for every sailor in the Royal Navy. The effect was immediate and staggering, and this is where fruit changed history. Between 1795 and 1814, the Navy issued over 1.5 million gallons of lemon juice to its ships. At the Naval Hospital at Haslar, scurvy cases fell from nearly 1,500 a year to two. An entire disease switched off. And here's what that meant strategically, because this is the part that touched all of Europe. A healthy navy is a navy that can stay at sea. British ships could now hold a blockade for years at a time without their crews rotting away, strangling French ports, choking off Napoleon's fleet and his trade. The fleet grew past 1,000 warships. They planted so many lemon trees to supply it that large stretches of Sicily were given over to orchards for the Royal Navy. One naval surgeon of the era wrote afterward that the blockade which destroyed France's naval power could never have been maintained without the cure for scurvy. That's his assessment from inside it, and you can see why he'd say it. Napoleon had the largest army in Europe. He could not get past a wall of British ships crewed by men kept healthy by citrus. A piece of fruit helped hold the line. So the story should end there, triumphantly. Fruit beats plague, fruit beats Napoleon. But it doesn't end there, and here's the objection you're probably already forming. There is no way, you're thinking, that a navy this successful just forgot the cure. You don't win a war with lemon juice and then lose the knowledge. A whole institution doesn't forget something it proved twice over. Except that's exactly what happened, and how it happened is one of the best lessons in this entire story, because in the 1840s and 50s, the Navy made a switch that seemed completely harmless. They swapped lemons for limes. It made perfect sense on paper. Limes came from British colonies in the West Indies, which meant they were cheaper and didn't depend on Mediterranean trade. A lime is a citrus fruit, sour just like a lemon. Surely it does the same job, except it doesn't. West Indian limes contain roughly 1/4 of the vitamin C that lemons do, and then they made it far worse. To preserve the lime juice, they concentrated it by boiling it, and they pumped it through copper tubing and stored it. And here's the thing, they could not have known. The very thing that cures scurvy is fragile. It's destroyed by heat. It's destroyed by exposure to air and time. It's destroyed by copper. So they took a fruit that was already 4 times weaker, boiled the life out of it, ran it through copper, and stored it for months. What was left in the barrel was, chemically, almost useless. A sour juice that did nothing. And nobody noticed, because of a coincidence of timing. Right when the cure quietly stopped working, steam power was making voyages much shorter, so sailors rarely went long enough to develop scurvy anyway. The disease became rare for a completely different reason, which hid the fact that the medicine was now worthless, so the knowledge rotted. Doctors began to doubt citrus worked at all. Some decided scurvy was caused by tainted meat, or bad hygiene, or low morale. And that is why, in 1911, when Captain Scott's expedition reached the Antarctic, his men came down with scurvy, and the expedition's doctor understood less about the disease than an ordinary sea captain had 100 years earlier. The cure had been found, used to win a war, and then completely lost, all within about a century. And the bitter irony? The British were nicknamed limeys, after the very lime that had stopped protecting them. But none of this explains the strangest thing we saw. Remember those old wounds reopening on the sailors, the healed scars splitting, the mended bones coming apart? That is the clue that unlocks everything, and you can feel the mechanism behind it in your own hand right now. Press your fingernail into the pad of your thumb for a second, then let go, and watch the color flood back and the skin spring instantly back into shape. That snap back, that instant repair, is a protein called collagen doing its job. Collagen is the scaffolding of your entire body. It's the mortar between the bricks. It holds together your skin, your gum tissue, the walls of your blood vessels, your tendons, and the seals on every wound you've ever healed. Your body is constantly rebuilding that mortar, and to mix a fresh batch, it needs one specific ingredient, vitamin C. Without vitamin C, your body cannot make new collagen. And most animals sidestep this problem entirely because they manufacture their own vitamin C internally. Humans are one of the few that can't. Somewhere in our evolution, we lost that ability, so we have to eat it and keep eating it. The moment the fresh food runs out, the clock starts ticking. So now the whole horror makes sense. Cut off vitamin C, and your body can't mix new mortar. The old mortar starts crumbling. The scaffolding fails everywhere at once, which is why scurvy hits the gums, the skin, the blood vessels, and the old wounds all together. Those old scars split open because the collagen holding them shut was never permanent. It needs constant renewal, and the renewal stopped. Your body doesn't just fail to heal new damage, it comes undone at every old repair. That's not a metaphor. That's the literal biochemistry of a body running out of the one thing it needs to hold itself together. And the amount needed to hold that off is tiny. Historically, about a small daily dose of citrus was enough, which is why a sailor pulled back from the edge of scurvy could recover startlingly fast once fresh fruit reached him. Few things in medicine are that fast. And it explains the great blunder perfectly. Vitamin C isn't sturdy. It's one of the most fragile nutrients there is. Boil it and it breaks down. Expose it to air and copper and time, and it degrades. So when the Navy boiled weak lime juice and stored it in copper, they weren't preserving the cure. They were destroying it molecule by molecule, while believing they'd bottled it. They thought the sourness was the medicine. It never was. The medicine was an invisible, delicate compound, and they cooked it to death. So here's the lesson, and it's the whole story in one line. They didn't lose the ability to prevent scurvy because they ran out of fruit. They lost it because they forgot that the fresh, unprocessed food was the medicine, and the moment they processed it for convenience, the medicine quietly disappeared. And that mistake isn't stuck in the past. The instinct to trade fresh food for a concentrated, shelf-stable, more convenient version, and to assume you've kept what mattered, is exactly the trap the Navy fell into. Sometimes you have. Sometimes, like them, you've boiled the medicine out and kept the bottle. So here's how to actually use this, and it's refreshingly simple. Built as a system rather than a list. The first step this week is just to add one fresh, vitamin C-rich food to most days. An orange, a handful of berries, some raw pepper. A single orange covers a large share of a day's vitamin C, so this isn't a heavy lift. The second step is about how you handle it, because the key word from this entire story is fresh. Vitamin C degrades with heat and time, so a fresh piece of fruit beats an old bottle of juice, and lightly steamed vegetables beat ones boiled to mush, since hard boiling leaches and destroys the vitamin, the exact mistake the Navy made. And the long-term step is to rotate your sources rather than obsess over one superfood, because it isn't only citrus. Bell peppers, broccoli, kiwi, strawberries, and even the humble potato are all strong sources, and the potato is what kept much of Northern Europe free of scurvy for generations. The whole system is small amounts of fresh, gently prepared produce, varied most days. Here's what to avoid, and notice they're the Navy's mistakes in miniature. Don't assume a processed product equals the fresh food it came from. Don't boil your vegetables to death, and don't assume all sources are equal the way they assumed a lime equaled a lemon. 2 million sailors died over 3 centuries from the lack of something a small daily dose of fruit could have prevented. Then one stubborn experiment and 2 men who refused to let it be ignored turned that fruit into the quiet advantage that helped Britain hold its wall of ships around Napoleon's Europe. And then the most powerful navy in the world lost the knowledge again, because they forgot that the medicine wasn't the sourness, or the bottle, or even the idea of citrus. It was the fragile, living freshness of the food itself. Handle that carelessly, and the cure vanishes in your hands. That was true on a wooden ship in 1850, and it's true in your kitchen tonight. If this changed how you see the fruit bowl on your counter, subscribe, because we're breaking down the real fuel behind history, one food at a time. And tell me in the comments, have you ever changed how you prepare food once you learned the preparation changed what was actually in it? That's the whole lesson of the lemon and the lime, and I want to hear yours. And what should we break down next?